Um, Greetings, everyone. Today we're going to be doing chapters 26 and through 30 of Genesis, another 5 chapters of Genesis. And so, when we talk about Isaac, Jacob, Esau, Abimelech again, this time it's not the same Abimelech, but it's like a dynasty name, so we'll also, after this next video we'll be on Lamentations, finishing that up and do a summary for that. So, we'll get straight into it. So, chapter 26. Now there was a famine in the land besides the previous famine in Abraham's time, and Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land where I tell you to live. Stay in this land for a while, and I will excuse me. And I will give you all these lands." No, wait. Verse 3. "Stay in this land for a while, and I will be with you, and I will bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give all these lands, and will confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and will give them all these lands, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed. Because Abraham obeyed me, and did everything I required of him, keeping my commands, my decrees, and my instructions, so Isaac stayed in Gerar. When the men of that place asked him about his wife, he said, 'She is my sister,' because he was afraid to say, 'She is my wife.' He thought the men in this place might kill me on account of Rebekah, because she is beautiful." When Isaac had been there a long time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked down from a window and saw Isaac caressing his wife Rebekah. So Abimelech summoned Isaac and said, "She is really your wife? Why did you say, 'She is my sister'?" Isaac answered him, "Because I thought I might lose my life on account of her." Then Abimelech said, "What is this you have done to us? One of the men might well have slept with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us." So Abimelech gave orders to all the people, "Anyone who harms his man or his wife shall surely be put to death." Isaac planted crops in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold, because the Lord blessed him. The man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines stopped up, filling them with earth. Then Abimelech said to Isaac, "Move away from us. You have become too powerful for us." So Isaac moved away from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar, where he settled. Isaac reopened wells that he dug in the time of his father Abraham, which the Philistines had stopped up after Abraham died, and he gave them the same names his father had given them. Isaac's servants dug in the valley and discovered a well of fresh water here, but the herders of the Gerar quarreled with those of Isaac and said, "The water is ours." So he named the well Esek, because they disputed with him. Then they dug another well, but they quarreled over that one also, so he named it Sitnah. He moved on from there and dug another well, and no one quarreled over it. He named it Rehoboth, saying, "Now the Lord has given us room, and we will flourish in this land." From there he went up to Beersheba. That night the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you and will increase the number of your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham." Isaac built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord. There he pitched his tent, and there his servants dug a well. Meanwhile, Abimelech had come to him from Gerar with Arzat, his personal advisor, and Phicol, the commander of his forces. I'm not going to be able to pronounce some of these names. Isaac asked him, "Why have you come to me, since you were hostile to me and sent me away?" They answered, "We saw clearly that the Lord was with you, so we said, 'There ought to be a sworn agreement between us and you. Let us make a treaty with you, that you will do us no harm, just as we did not harm you, but always treated you well and sent you all away peacefully. And now you are blessed by the Lord.'" Isaac then made a feast for them, and they ate and drank. Early the next morning the men swore an oath to each other. Then Isaac sent them on their ways, and they went away peacefully. That day Isaac's servants came and told him about the well they had dug. They said, "We found water." He called it Sheba, and to this day the name of that town has been Beersheba. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beri the Hittite. and also Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. They were a source of grief to Isaac and Rebekah. I think it's because they were pagans. Chapter 27. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau his older son and said to him, "My son, here I am," he answered. Isaac said, "I am now an old man and don't know the day of my death. Now then, get your equipment, your quiver and bow, and go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare me the kind of tasty food I like and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my blessing before I die." Now Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau left for the open country to hunt game and bring it back, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, "Look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau, 'Bring me some game and prepare some tasty food to eat, so that I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die. Now, my son, listen carefully and do what I tell you. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats, so I can prepare some tasty food for your father just the way he likes it. Then take it to your father to eat, so that he may give you his blessing before he dies." Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, "But my brother Esau is a hairy man, while I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing." His mother said to him, "My son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me." So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she prepared some tasty food just the way his father liked it. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. She also covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with the goat skins. Then she handed to her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread she made. He went to his father and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who is it?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." Isaac asked his son, "How do you find it so quickly, my son?" "The Lord your God gave me success," he replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come near so I can touch you, my son, to know whether you really are my son Esau or not." Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him, and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, so he proceeded to bless him. "Are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "I am," he replied. Then he said, "My son, bring me some of your game to eat, so that I may give you my blessing." Jacob brought it to him, and he ate, and he brought some wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come here, my son, and kiss me." So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, "Ah, the smell of my son, it's like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness and abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and people bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." After Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." His father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" "I am your firstborn," Esau answered. "Your firstborn Esau." Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it, then, that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came in, and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, me too, my father." But Isaac answered, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright, and now he's taking my blessing." Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him lord over you, and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept aloud. His father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother, but when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck." Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." When Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Your brother Esau is planning to avenge himself by killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send my word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" Then Rebekah said to Isaac, "I'm disgusted with living because of these Hittite women. If Jacob takes a wife from among the women of this land, from Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living." So Isaac called for Jacob and blessed him. Then he commanded him, "Do not marry a Canaanite woman. Go at once to Paddan-aram, to the house of your mother's father Bethuel. Take a wife for yourself there, from among the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and increase your numbers until you become a community of peoples. May he give you and your descendants the blessing given to Abraham, so that you may take possession of the land where you now reside as a foreigner, the land God gave to Abraham." Then Isaac sent Jacob on his way, and he went to Paddan-aram, to Laban, son of Bethuel, the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, who was the mother of Jacob and Esau. Now Esau learned that Isaac had blessed Jacob and had sent him to Paddan-aram to take a wife from there, and that when he blessed him, he commanded him, "Do not go to..." Let me rephrase that, starting at verse 6. Now Esau learned that Isaac had blessed Jacob and had sent him to Paddan-aram to take a wife from there, and that when he blessed him, he commanded him, "Do not marry a Canaanite woman," and that Jacob had obeyed his father and mother and had gone to Paddan-aram. Esau then realized how displeasing the Canaanite women were to his father Isaac, so he went to Ishmael and married Mahalath, the sister of Nebaioth and daughter of Ishmael, son of Abraham, in addition to the wives he already had. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. When he reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching the heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There above it stood the Lord, and he said, "I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you all, and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it." He was afraid and said, "How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven." Early the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He called that place Bethel, though the city used to be called Luz. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, "If God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that on this journey I am taking and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I will return safely to my father's household, then the Lord will be my God, and this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house, and of all that you give me I will give you a tenth." Then Jacob continued on his journey and came to the land of eastern peoples. There he saw a well in the open country with 3 flocks of sheep lying near it, because the flocks were watered from that well. The stone over the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone away from the well's mouth and water the sheep. Then they would return the stone to its place over the mouth of the well. Jacob asked the shepherds, "My brothers, where are you from?" "We're from Haran," they replied. He said to them, "Do you know Laban, Nahor's grandson?" "Yes, we know him," they answered. Then Jacob asked them, "Is he well?" "Yes, he is," they said, "and here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep." "Look," he said, "the sun is still high. It is not time for the flocks to be gathered. Water the sheep and take them back to pasture." "We can't," they replied, "until all the flocks are gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the mouth of the well. Then we will water the sheep." While he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherd. When Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of his uncle Laban, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the mouth of the well and watered his uncle's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. He had told Rachel that he was a relative of her father and son of Rebekah, so she ran and told her father. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him, and brought him to his home, and there Jacob told him all these things. Then Laban said to him, "You are my own flesh and blood." After Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, "Just because you are a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, "I'll work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It's better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me." So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife, my time is completed, and I want to make love to her." So Laban brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast, but when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and Jacob made love to her, and Laban gave his servant Zilpah to his daughter as her attendant. When morning came, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me?" Laban replied, "It is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Finish the daughter's bridal week, then we will give you the younger one also, in return for another 7 years of work." And Jacob did so. He finished the week with Leah, and then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her attendant. Jacob made love to Rachel also, and his love for Rachel was greater than his love for Leah, and he worked for Laban another 7 years. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he enabled her to conceive, but Rachel remained childless. Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, "It is because the Lord has seen my misery. Surely my husband will love me now." She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "Because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too." So she named him Simon. Again she conceived, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "Now at last my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons." So he was named Levi. She conceived again, and when she gave birth to a son, she said, "This time I will praise the Lord." So she named him Judah. Then she stopped having children. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she became jealous of her sister. So she said to Jacob, "Give me children or I'll die." Jacob became angry with her and said, "Am I in the place of God who has kept you from having children?" Then she said, "Here's Bilhah my servant. Sleep with her so that she can bear children for me, and I too can build a family through her." So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife. Jacob slept with her, and she became pregnant and bore him a son. And Rachel said, "God has vindicated me. He has listened to my plea and given me a son." Because of this she named him Dan. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, I have had a greater struggle with my sister, and I have won." So she named him Naphtali. Don't know how to pronounce that. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, "What's good fortune?" So she named him Gad. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. Then Leah said, "How happy I am! The women will call me happy." So she named him Asher. During what wheat harvest? I butchered that sentence. Verse 14 of 30. During wheat harvest, Reuben went out into the fields and found some mandrake plants, which he brought to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But she said to her, "Wasn't it enough that you took away my husband? Will you take my son's mandrakes too?" "Very well," Rachel said. "He can sleep with you tonight in return for your son's mandrakes." So when Jacob came in from the fields that evening, Leah went out to meet him. "You must sleep with me," she said. "I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." So he slept with her that night. God listened to Leah, and she became pregnant and bore Jacob a 5th son. Then Leah said, "God has rewarded me for giving my servant to my husband." So she named him Issachar. Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a 6th son. Then Leah said, "God has presented me with a precious gift. This time my husband will treat me with honor because I have borne him 6 sons. So she named him Zebulun. Zebulun. Sometime later, she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and enabled her to conceive. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son and said, God has taken away my disgrace. She named him Joseph and said, May the Lord add to me another son. After Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, Send me on my way so I can go back to my own homeland. Give me my wives and children for whom I have served you, and I will be on my way. You know how much work I've done for you. But Laban said to him, If I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. He added, Name your wages, and I will pay them. Jacob said to him, You know how I have worked for you, and how your livestock has fared under my care. The little you had before I came has increased greatly, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I have been. But now, when may I do something for my own household? What shall I give you? He asked. Don't give me anything, Jacob replied. But if you will do this one thing for me, I will go on tending your flocks and watching over them. Let me go through all your flocks today and remove from them every speckled or spotted sheep, every dark-colored lamb, and every spotted or speckled goat. They will be my wages, and my honesty will testify for me in the future whenever you check on the wages you have paid me, and any goat in my possession that is not speckled or spotted, or any lamb that is not dark-colored, nor will be considered stolen. Agreed, said Laban. Let it be as you have said. That same day he removed all the male goats that were streaked or spotted, and all the speckled or spotted female goats, all that had white on them, and all the dark-colored lambs, and he placed them in the care of his sons. Then he put a 3-day journey between himself and Jacob, while Jacob continued to tend the rest of Laban's flocks. Jacob, however, took fresh-cut branches from poplar, almond and plane trees, and made white stripes on them by peeling the bark and exposing the white inner wood of the branches. Then he placed the peeled branches in all the watering troughs, so that they would be directly in front of the flocks when they came to drink. When the flocks were in heat and came to drink, they mated in front of the branches, and they bore young that were streaked or speckled or spotted. Jacob set apart the young of the flock by themselves, but made the rest face the streaked and dark-colored animals that belonged to Laban. Thus he made separate flocks for himself, and did not put them with Laban's animals. Whenever the stronger females were in heat, Jacob would place the branches in the troughs in front of the animals so that they would mate near the branches. But if the animals were weak, he would not place them there, so the weak animals went to Laban, and the strong ones to Jacob. In this way the man grew exceedingly prosperous, and came to own large flocks and female and male servants, and camels and donkeys. So that's chapter 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Also, hello DC. So, now we're going to be talking about all of that. Starting off with who the Philistines are. So as you can see, Abimelech is king of Philistines. And Gerar, don't know how to say that, but I know I was reading it as Gerar, so I'm just going to continue to call it Gerar for any confusion. So, the Philistines would also be like great enemies of Israel eventually. And for example, if you read 1 Samuel, it talks about it, how the Philistines were enemies of the Israelites. There was Saul, Samuel, David. We'll get into that whenever we read 1 Samuel. So, these people lived along the southwest coast, where few but ferocious in battle. Although friendly to Isaac, this small group was the forerunner of the nation that would plague Israel during the days of Joshua, the judges, and David. By the way, as I mentioned earlier, this is not the same Abimelech, but this is a different Abimelech. This is probably his son or grandson, and Abimelech was like a dynasty, pretty much, name for a dynasty. And I think it says what it means in here. Abimelech means my father is king, which, yes, was like a dynastic name used by Philistine rulers. So, as if you look at what happened whenever Isaac and Abimelech met, it's similar to how Abraham behaved. He gave his wife and said, this is my sister, and he was, because he was afraid that they would kill Abraham and take his wife. And this was because it was only a half lie because Sarah, or Sarai, was his half sister, but so it wasn't fully a lie. So Isaac did the same thing as well and claimed that Rebecca was his sister. He learned this from Abraham, so this story between Abraham, Isaac, and Abimelech is a good example of how parents are good figures in a child's life. That parents, what they do will either reflect off of their children or the children will learn it from them. So Isaac learned that from Abraham clearly because exact same thing that Abraham did. So the learning, the lesson that you get out of this little story is be careful what you do in front of your children because they will reflect what you do. If you are a drug lord and you are a drug master, they're going to probably be the same thing. If you are a good man, a man of moralities, they'll probably be a man of moralities as well. So be careful what you do in front of your children. Next, so whenever the Philistines were getting a little upset about the wells, because God blessed Isaac, so Isaac was of course going to live fruitfully and richly, they would dig up some earth or dirt and stuff it into the wells. And this was because they were jealous of how everything went good for Isaac. So that's why they decided to fill his wells. So jealousy, as you can see, is a strong, it can lead to strong crimes, and back then filling up another's well was a sign of war. My dogs are in here, I had to check on them. So if you filled up a well with dirt, that would be enabling a war almost, because wells were very important back then. So jealousness can lead to bad outcomes. It can lead to the fall of nations. It can lead to brothership getting broken, relationships getting broken. For example, Rachel and Leah were jealous of each other, so they pretty much had a contest of who can have the most children, and that would ruin their relationship too. And same with Esau and Jacob. Esau was jealous that Jacob got the blessing and not him, so he got really angry about it and said he was going to kill Jacob. Luckily, next time Jacob does meet Esau, they, come off on a good start and start over. And so we'll read that next video though. So jealousy can tear things apart greatly. So consider, before you act out in jealousy, think about what you're going to do, because it can lead to bad things like the fall of nations, relationships. So each time they dug up a well, Isaac and his men would make a new well and give them different names, and the wells would be, dug back again. He did this 3 times after the first 2 disputes. And so when the 3rd well was dug, wind was finally available for everyone. And so pretty much he allowed DC. So pretty much he compromised the situation. He was like, I made a bigger well and now everyone can use it. So he compromised the situation.
I compromised the situation. Oh, can you hear me? Hello?
I can't hear you.
Hello? You cannot hear me at all. Like,
okay, my Bluetooth's not on. I can't hear you, DC.
hello.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, just making sure. So, this is my friend Max. He's an oddball. Just continue.
So Isaac, instead of lessening conflict, and so I know it can be hard to forgive some people. I know it can be hard to get over certain conflicts, but the best thing to do is forgive and compromise the situation. Because if you we call conflict,
just how you compromise your situation so you can let me on, right?
Where are you?
Let's go! Stop. Okay?
Wait, is he white?
No, stop.
He's not white.
Hold on. Leave me alone. Hold on. Stop. Hold on. Hold on.
No, I'm not. Yeah.
Stop. Stop.
Oh look, we're on there, baby. Show it.
Okay.
We're live with you, baby.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Live.
No, it's alright.
No, it's not. It's this.
It's good. So up was
I think I'll come back to you when I'm a little bit less, well, a little less company is around. All right, I'm sorry. I'll come back. No, I'll try to be there as fast as I can. But for right now, my company is a little wild.
are you
Wait, sir?
at church right now?
Yes.
Yeah, so ultimately with and so that shows God's influence upon others through you. If God's working through you, it can influence even your own enemies to make peace with you. And so that's how powerful God's influence can be. And I was correct. Esau did marry some pagan women. And so he thought, so parents listen to the advice given. Clearly, Isaac nor Rebekah wanted Esau nor Jacob to marry a pagan woman. Jacob didn't, but Esau did. That you're not supposed to marry other outside religions, according to the Bible. So, first, this could cause conflict upon the family. So you should listen to your parents' advice rather than go against it. So, as we see in chapter 27, Esau, or Jacob, Isaac, and this Rebekah's impatience. And so instead of waiting for the promise that God had given Rebekah and Isaac, that the younger will rule over the older, he impeded God's plan due to her impatience and her own hands, and that could also lead to conflict as well. So a lot of things that is happening, Esau, Jacob, Isaac, could all lead to conflict. So we should always trust God to guide us through, conflict, through the matters that He promised us, because if we don't, it could lead to conflict. Conflict's the big word of today. And we shouldn't attend to matters through our own hands that disregard Him. Okay. So when Jacob did hear about this, he hesitated. He was trying to say that my, brother Esau is a hairy man, and move in. If the brother, he would have been cursed rather than blessed if Isaac knew that Jacob was Esau. And so he hesitated about it, but not for the right reason. He hesitated out of fear of getting caught rather than not wanting to do or go against God. And so it shows true character whenever we hesitate during situations or act on different situations depending on our opinion.
Hello?
Any insight?
Any insight? So you say, so let me just get this straight. Because I kind of came out, I might have just got something wrong. But so you're telling me in stressful situations, we tend to we tend to have a disobedience because of our own, not emotional or
Patience.
thought,
Yeah.
emotion, thought.
Patience. Emotion, thought. You could apply a lot of things to it.
Yeah. But in those type of situations, I don't know what type of situation you're trying to refer to. Is it a stressful situation or is it like a faith in God situation?
So, know how in Genesis, Rebekah and Isaac were promised whenever they had their children, Esau and Jacob, that the younger would rule over the older?
Oh yeah.
So Rebecca pretty much put matters in her own hand and told Jacob to go deceive rather than waiting for God's promise to come in action. And so she acted out of impatience and put matters in her own hand, which if she avoided that, Esau would go Jacob. Jacob probably wouldn't, have as many problems. He wouldn't probably, Jacob had to deal with a lot of things after he did that. He had to leave his household. And when he came back to his household, his mother wasn't there. And it was only Isaac. So it led to conflict and it led to consequence due to impatience.
Alright, so because of her impatience, she missed a blessing, or she caused somebody else's life to fall. That's it?
Yeah.
So basically, that's just down to selfishness and just how the devil will use certain people. Um, like if you cherish somebody with your own heart, like mother and son, like if that's like you birthed that child, but you knowing your child is not going to be the best because of some other child. I know some mothers are like very loving of their child and do anything for their child, but when it comes to God, He's the one who gave you that child in the first place. So there shouldn't be no disobedience in that fact, because some couples are not able to have children at all, and so you should take that joy you have for that child and just be obedient instead of what she did and try to make her child the best of the best. She should just listen to God's command so she can be blessed by God, because obedience is uh, more than anything, really, especially when it comes to God.
He would
And
last, but it would be Jacob. But I get what you're saying though, yeah.
yeah, so like my phone's about to die. I know I said I'll be on the phone with you. My phone's literally hanging by one bar right now. And but just to make a little quick intervention, I know you were talking about how you have to adapt to situations like what just happened, like very um, few seconds ago, a few minutes ago. All that little shenanigans. You just gotta work through it and just go with the flow sometimes, because you never know what God has for you. Just make you smile, make you laugh, and just because you look. Sometimes I see you on that live, you look miserable sometimes, and yeah, I know you don't see it, but it's like so today, like I like it when I come on live because you smile more. It's more lively. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But brother, I don't know what to tell you, but just just like every situation we have, we always have a decision. He gives us the free will to do whatever we want in this world. But when it comes to when it comes to obedience and following His words, up to us to discern or determine for ourselves are we're going to obey or not, depending on whatever the situation. Because I promise you, what you have does not compare to what God has. And I have to go. Goodbye.
Right. So Jacob, even gave Rebecca a chance to think about close out of Facebook. So Jacob gave Rebecca a chance to think about what she was doing whenever he was like, "Oh, but my brother's a hairy man. If Isaac captures me, I will be cursed rather than blessed." And that gave a chance for Rebecca to think of what she was doing, but instead of, trying to have right morality and think what she was doing and obey God's plan to make Jacob get the blessing, instead it only degraded her character and she showed her true self. Same with Jacob. He hesitated and was fearful of what could have happened, but he was only fearful of not disobeying God, but rather getting caught. So it showed his true character as well, that, he didn't have a problem doing it. He didn't have a problem taking Esau's blessing. He just didn't want to get caught doing it. And that's showing true character. Hesitance, impatience, given the chance to think about it shows our true character and our true motives. So, Jacob, did get his blessings from Isaac, but not in a way that you would normally get it. He did it deceitfully, and sinned against that. So, and sent his way into blessing. And this, as we mentioned earlier, this costed him greatly in numerous ways. Like, for example, he had to leave his household in fear that his brother could have killed him. He was exiled from his, family pretty much for years. His brother, yes, wanted to kill him as well. His family, was struggled with strife. And Esau became the founder of an enemy nation. So Jacob could have received and inherited his blessing by just waiting for it, but instead, him and Rebekah acted out in impatience and did it deceitfully, which if he just waited patiently to inherit his blessing, he could have received so much greater things. He could have, his life would have been different. The book of the Bible, Genesis, would be different as well. So you got to think about it before you sin, before you act out of impatience, or before you act out of deceit. You got to think about what that can lead to. Because, for example, I've used this example before. Lying doesn't seem that big, but it can lead to worse things. Jacob is a good example. But, if your mom asks you if you locked the door before you left to school, and you go like, yeah, but you actually left it unlocked, someone can break into their house, and that can lead to them murdering, them robbing, or them just pretty much usurping your household, which I know probably doesn't happen today a lot, but could have happened back then. So you got to think before you act a lot of times. So why couldn't Jacob, why couldn't they take the blessing back? So pretty much, I'm gonna have to read this off of different notes. Okay. Before a father died, this is in my Bible, before a father died, he performed the ceremony of blessing in which he officially handed over the birthright to the rightful heir. Although the firstborn son was entitled to the birthright, it was not actually his until the blessing was pronounced before the blessing was given. The father could take the birthright away from the older son and give it to a more deserving son, but after the blessing was given, the birthright could no longer be taken away. This is why fathers usually waited until late in life or longer to pronounce the blessing. Although Jacob had been given the birthright by his older brother years before, he still needed his father's blessing to make it binding. And in ancient times, a person's word was binding, much like a written contract today, especially when it was a formal oath. That is why Isaac's blessing was irrevocable. Fun fact about that then. And that explains why, his blessing was irrevocable. That's why he couldn't just take it away. So Esau was so blinded by anger that he literally wanted to go kill his brother. And that was because of Jacob's deception, and that he failed to see himself given his birthright away in the first place. So, actions of others can come from our own actions. And I can give another example. If you read Jeremiah and I think Chronicles, it talks about King Zedekiah. He was called the Lord's anointed. And it talks about that in Lamentations as well. He listened to false prophets rather than Jeremiah, and he led his country to exile. He led to his country to destruction, and the Babylonians took a bunch of them captive. So whenever you act on something, it can make others act wrongly as well. King Zedekiah acted upon what the false prophets were telling him, and since he did that, everyone else acted the same way that King Zedekiah would be acting. And we're not supposed to, do that. We're not supposed to be an example for others if we are terrible persons, if we have evil or bad morality. So think about how other people can behave around your behavior. Like, literally, we are who we hang out with can be put into literal terms, and however we act can be like something that branches off into other people's behavior or how they perceive us. Big words, but makes sense, at least. So, yeah. Esau failed to see because he was so blinded by anger. He failed to see why he wanted to kill Jacob and why Jacob was able to do that in the first place. And that's because Esau gave up his birthright to Jacob. So Esau's fault as well. So Esau had lost his valuable inheritance because of Jacob. So he decided to kill Jacob. And when others take from you, you have this urge to take from them or get them back or cut their throats as well. And so it's anger and revenge sometimes is a common reaction and a good, not good, but a common, feeling or action you would want to take after someone takes or do something that's against you. But you got to realize when you do that, there's some things that you have to think about. You got to recognize your reaction and what you're going to do for what it is, because it can be bad. Esau wanted to kill Jacob. That is terrible. You got to pray for strength as well. You can have strength to overcome those obstacles, like we talked about in the lessons on faith, that you can pray for strength from God to overcome any obstacle, because faith can literally, I don't know if literally, but faith can move a mountain, and that means to overcome any obstacle. Faith can also heal the sick and have divine restoration. You can also ask God for help or opportunities that even your bad situation may provide. So like I said, like I've said before, you can go through struggles and you can find, opportunities out of those struggles. God, can make you more faithful out of those struggles. You can come to God easier through struggles. You can have a better life through struggles. And so, we're now talking about Ishmael again. So Ishmael was Abraham's son and Isaac's brother, half-brother. And from is Abraham's son from Hagar, the servant of Sarah. So Esau thought by marrying Ishmael's daughters, because since he saw that Isaac and Rebekah didn't take it kindly to marrying pagans, he decided to marry Ishmael's daughter to try and make up for that. That, of course, would not please them. If you listen to God, you can't make it up to him by, just simply keeping those necessities that keep you doing wrong, and then have a necessity that's like doing good. You have to put aside things that take you from God in order to do good. Because if you don't push things that make you do wrong against God, you're not going to be able to do good with God, because you have like an eternal conflict there, and you're going to be tempted, and then you're like, oh, I can't do that. But then you're going to be tempted, like, oh, I can't do that. It's a cycle. And you're going to ask for forgiveness for doing that, but you're going to keep doing it over and over. And so he never divorced his pagan wives, even though trying to make it up through marrying Ishmael's daughter. And I believe the name was Mahalith. Yeah. So Jacob had to make his own personal relationship, like how God and Isaac had did, to continue God's promise. Each person must have a personal relationship with God. You cannot just, say, oh, my parents were Christians, I'm going to make it in heaven then. That's not how it works. Each person is their own body, each person is their own mind, each person has their own conscience, and we act depending on, sometimes the reflection of our parents or the course of our lives. And so we are different people. And just because our parents are our relatives, our ancestors, our family, that doesn't mean just because, since we are the same blood, that you will go to heaven just like them if they, did good and listen to God. So you have to take order and ordain stuff into your own life and sub God yourself. It's like pretty much, the president, he has, control over the entire country, and he can work the country, make it well, but he can't just do that by himself. You have other branches of government, you have the citizens of the country, and if they don't do good or try to serve the country would collapse, because the president can't just do it by himself. There's other factors that try to help that. So, yeah. Verses 20, chapter 28, verses 20 through 22. We're going to actually read that one. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's household, then the Lord will be my God, and this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house, and all that you give me I will give you a tenth. So Jacob wasn't trying to bargain with God. He was promising God. He was pledging his future to him. And, that's why his words, because you have blessed me, I will follow you. God blessed him and also held challenges against Jacob. And, Jacob would learn out of those challenges. Jacob would learn from his actions of deception. And because Jacob does mean he deceives, his name is also changed later on. So, speaking of names, actually, back then, it was common for people to have funky names and more dynamic names, and those names held meaning. For example, Obadiah, that's a weird name. Abraham, you don't see much people name that. Let me think of some other goofy names in the Bible. Israel, that's the name of a nation. You normally won't find people who are named Israel. Let me think of other names. Nahor, Terah, those are some goofy names as well. So, Bilhah, that's another goofy name I just saw now in the book. So yeah, people have some goofy names, but they held meaning back then. Nowadays we have these more normal and more relaxed names. They seem more simple and make more sense to us, but back then they used more dynamic names, and parents used that and hoped that their kids would live up to the meaning of the names, and if they didn't, they would change the names later on in life perhaps. And God did that with Jacob. Jacob means he deceives, or he grasps the hill, and he did deceive. He did come out grasping Esau's hill whenever he was born. And his name got changed to Israel, meaning he struggles with God. And so, yeah. Also, talking about the bride price now, it was a custom of the day for a man to present a bride price of substantial gift to the family of his future wife, and that was, since Jacob couldn't provide physical, he did labor and worked, and which is still physical work, but not like a gift, pretty much. Not like something you see as a gift, but it could be, yeah. Never mind, it is a gift. But so, yeah, that's one of the customs. But another custom that Laban didn't tell Jacob was that he had to marry the older daughter before the younger daughter, and that was a custom back then. So therefore, the deceiver had been deceived. Funny how sin has its way to loop back and punish you later, right? Because that's going to happen to us all if we don't listen to God. If we sin, we're going to all go to hell. And, we can sin, we can accidentally slip up a few times and not go to hell, but if we intentionally and indulge ourselves into fleshly desires on purpose and it go against God's will, or you don't even believe in him, it's not going to be a fun afterlife for you. And that's really all I can say for that. But yeah. So you see Jacob working for 7 years. You see him working for 14 years. He works for Laban, and his desires are to marry Rachel. So the most important desires, the most important goals in our life will, don't come easy. They take a long time. And for example, Jacob worked 14 years for Rachel pretty much. And now today, we have this mindset that, some things can happen within an hour and we'll be good. Goals don't get fixed like that. My dad had to fix a car this, past week, and he had to get the parts. He had to get, instructions and all of that, and he did it. And, you could fix a car in one day, but he didn't want to go pay at the automotive place. So instead, he did it himself, and it took him probably like 7 days or 5 days. I'm not sure, but I know it didn't take him an hour or 2 hours. It takes time to actually do something. And movies, TV shows, video games nowadays, they have their way to manipulate this sort of custom in our mind that things only happen within an hour and that we can get through things within an hour, but that's not how it works. So we gotta be patient when trying to achieve our goals, and you can see patience and conflicts as a big example within all of this, these few chapters. So Jacob was angered by Laban's deception. He was angry about injustice done by another that he himself had done before. Hypocrisy is a sin as well. Not hypocrisy. Sin has a way to loop around and slap you on the back again. That's also hypocrisy. Jacob getting mad at Laban for doing something that Jacob did as well. Hypocrisy. So, although Jacob had been deceived and hurt, he kept true to his word. He kept Rachel in his mind, his goal, and we also got to stay. He got to stay, faithful in what he worked for. And so this shows us an example that we should do that as well. We should stay faithful no matter the struggle, conflict, or the wrongs that someone does to us. If someone, chops off your leg, for example, that came suddenly. If someone chopped off your leg, that doesn't mean you can quit on life saying, I can't walk no more. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do work. You got another leg. You can get a robot part. You got hands, and you still can work in your life and, go to church and stuff. And, work for God and read your Bible. Just because someone chops off your leg doesn't mean you get to lay down in bed all day. Maybe for the first, month or week you get to. But That was a terrible example. But you get what I'm saying. Just because someone does you wrong doesn't mean you can't just quit on goals or God. You got to stay faithful and push through the consequences of that person's action that was held against you. So, stay faithful. So, each of the three patriarchs, Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac, or in order is actually Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, had, wives. And so, and each had, relations with their, no, Isaac then. Abraham had relations with Hagar, Sarah's or Sarai's servant, to have Isaac. Isaac prayed to God until Rebecca wasn't barren no more, and Jacob did the same as Abraham. And if you look at this, Jacob and Abraham both had bitter consequences out of it. Abraham, Hagar, and Sarah didn't have a good relationship between each other. They became jealous and hated each other. Hagar ran away, came back because an angel of the Lord told her so. And then, Isaac's little, I think, circumcision festival or party, she was told to leave because Sarah didn't want her there. So it led to bitter consequences. The same way Jacob, his wives couldn't conceive, so he would go to their servants. Leah could conceive, but it led to a bitter contest between Leah and Rebecca to see, not Rebecca, Rachel. I might have accidentally called Rachel Rebecca multiple times in this, they're similar names because they both start with R. So, due to Rachel and Leah competing to have more children in the clan, they both gave their servants to Jacob as concubines. This was an acceptable custom of the day, actually. Nowadays, it may seem weird. Nowadays, it's probably wrong. But it was an acceptable custom of the day. But that doesn't mean it was right. Just because a place says you have to be gay, just because a place says you have to be a woman to enter, I'm not talking about bathrooms. I'm talking about like a public place. Doesn't mean, they're blocking out genders. They're blocking out sexuality. And that's doing wrong. And that's, that would be a custom over there. If a park only required women to go, that would be sexism. And that would be blocking things, blocking men from having, freedom of going anywhere. And so, it can be the opposite way around. And maybe only men are allowed to go inside this little park or go into this festival, and then women couldn't. So although it could be an acceptable custom, doesn't mean it's right. I don't agree with homosexuality, because in Leviticus 18:22 it says, a man who lays with a man as he does with a woman has committed an abominable act. But, so, yeah, just because it's an acceptable custom doesn't mean it's right. If you feed into that custom, it's only going to make that custom worse, as, Jacob did. He had, intercourse with his wives' servants, and that could only make it worse. The competition between Leah and Rachel became worse. So, yeah. Eventually, God gave Rachel her children, thus conceiving Joseph. And, however, she was impatient and gave her servant as a concubine. Being able to trust God when nothing happens is difficult. But you got to pray, and it's only harder if you try to intercede with that. As a good example is Rebecca and Jacob. They interceded with God's plan and led to all of this, pretty much. Led to what most of Genesis ends with, other than Joseph's story. Well, yeah, if Rebecca and Jacob never did that, it would probably might have led into Joseph's story. I'm not sure, but that's a question for someone else. So, we got to resist the temptation that God is not going to work in our lives so that He had forgotten you, because that's not true. We'll talk about that in the Lamentations video tomorrow as well. So you have to have patience and courage as you wait for God, because God is there always. God will never leave you. You're the one you're the one who thinks God is waiting, but really how do I say that? I just use, God is waiting at the door for you. You're the one who has to answer the door. That's how I will answer that. So now we're going to read verses 37 through 43 of chapter 30.
just a few pages. Jacob, however, he took fresh cut branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees and made white stripes on them by peeling the bark and exposing the white inner wood of the branches. Then he placed the peeled branches in all the watering troughs so that they would be directly in front of the flock when they came to drink. When the flocks were in heat and came to drink, they mated in front of the branches, and they bore young that were streaked or speckled or spotted. Jacob set apart the young of the flock by themselves, but made the rest face the streaked and dark-colored animals that belonged to Laban. Thus he made separate flocks for himself, and did not put them with Laban's animals. Whenever the stronger females were in heat, Jacob would place the branches in the troughs in front of the animals so they would mate near the branches. But if the animals were weak, he would not place them there, so the weak animals went to Laban and the strong ones to Jacob. In this way the man grew exceedingly prosperous and came to own large flocks and female and male servants and camels and donkeys. So in my Bible it says this was a method back then that shepherds would use, well, not shepherds, husbandmen would use, as you know, it was a vivid impression as mating time would influence the offspring. Most likely the selective breeding and God's promise of provision were the main reasons that Jacob's flocks increased. So that, you know, that finishes Genesis 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Next video, we're doing Lamentations 3, 4, and 5, finishing that up, and after that, we're going to do the summary on Lamentations, and then we'll be doing Malachi, chapters 1, 2, and 3, then another Genesis video, then a Romans video. And then we're going to actually be doing a little fun video that doesn't, you know, really talk about, you know, books of the Bible, but instead, when we talk about other religions and how they contradict themselves. And so pretty much I'm going to be disproving other religions to prove Christianity. And I can do one right now, actually. Islam. They believe the earth is flat, and it has been proven that the earth is round. So Islam does not tell you the truth, and Muhammad did say that he did not know the meaning of life, so he contradicts himself. Confucius, you know, we'll get into that video whenever that comes. I've already been doing my studying, as you can see. So that concludes today's video. We're going to pray now. Lord, as we usually do, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, clap our hands. That's from my church, so we're going to do that. We're going to do just that. So Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Lord, I want to thank you for allowing me to preach your word today and allow people to listen to your word. Thank you for giving us the wisdom to understand what you have to say. Thank you for giving us the wisdom and the guidance in life so we can go through without hardships. And if we do have hardships, we can come out on top of them, avoiding any difficulties that could have come to us if we just indulge ourselves into our own past. Allow people to be patient and overcome impatience, because it can lead to difficulties, it can lead to struggles and consequences. Lord, thank you for blessing us all with life and giving us the gift of life so we can have a chance to hear your word and spread your word and have a chance to have eternal life with you. So, in your name I pray. Amen. So, go bear yoke, listen to God willingly, and obey him willingly. So, God bless everyone, and good night.